high priest Nicodemus used to meet with Jesus Christ at night. He knew him. He was an eyewitness of Jesus Christ. This is his gospel, formerly known as the Acts of Pilate. The Gospel of Nicodemus, formerly called the Acts of Pontius Pilate, Part 3. We start at chapter 6. Then Pilate, having called together Nicodemus and the 15 men who said that Jesus was not born through fornication, said to them, "What shall I do, seeing there is like to be a tumult among the people?" They said unto him, "We know not. Let them look to it who raised the tumult." Pilate then called the multitude again and said to them, "Ye know that ye have a custom that I should release to you one prisoner at the feast of the Passover. I have a noted prisoner, a murderer, who is called Barabbas, and Jesus, who is called Christ, in whom I find nothing that deserves death. Which of them therefore have you a mind that I should release to you?" They all cried out and say, "Release to us Barabbas." Pilate saith to them, "What then shall I do with Jesus, who is called Christ?" And they answer, "Let him be crucified." Again they cry out and say to Pilate, "You are not the friend of Caesar if you release this man, for he hath declared that he is the Son of God and a king. But are you inclined that he should be king and not Caesar?" Then Pilate, filled with rage, said to them, "Your nation hath always been seditious, and you are always against those who have been serviceable to you." The Jews replied, "Who are those who have been serviceable to us?" Pilate answered them, "Your God, who delivered you from the hard bondage of the Egyptians and brought you over the Red Sea as though it had been dry land, and fed you in the wilderness with manna and the flesh of quails, and brought water out of the rock, and gave you a law from heaven. Ye provoked him always, and desired for yourself a molten calf, and worshipped it, and sacrificed to it, and said, These are thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, on account of which your God was inclined to destroy you. But Moses interceded for you, and your God heard him, and forgave your iniquity. Afterwards you were enraged against, and would have killed your prophets, Moses and Aaron, when they fled to the tabernacle, and ye were always murmuring against God and his prophets. And arising from his judgment seat, he would have gone out, but the Jews all cried out, We acknowledge Caesar to be king, and not Jesus. Whereas this person, as soon as he was born, the wise men came and offered gifts unto him, which when Herod heard, he was exceedingly troubled, and would have killed him. When his father knew this, he fled with him and his mother Mary into Egypt. Herod, when he heard he was born, would have slain him, and accordingly sent and slew all the children which were in Bethlehem, and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under. When Pilate heard this account, he was afraid, and commanded silence among the people, who made a noise. He said to Jesus, Art thou therefore a king? All the Jews replied to Pilate, He is the very person whom Herod sought to have slain. Then Pilate, taking water, washed his hands before the people, and said, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. Look ye to it. The Jews answered and said, His blood be upon us and our children. Then Pilate commanded Jesus to be brought before him, and spake to him in the following words, Thine own nation hath charged thee as making thyself a king. Wherefore I, Pilate, sentence thee to be whipped according to the laws of former governors, and thou'st be first bound, then hanged upon the cross in the place where thou art now a prisoner, and also 2 criminals with thee, whose names are Demas and Gestas. Chapter 7. Then Jesus went out of the hall, and the 2 thieves with him. And when they came to the place which is called Golgotha, they stripped him of his raiment, and girt him about with a linen cloth, and put a crown of thorns upon his head, and put a reed in his hand. And in like manner they did to the 2 thieves who were crucified with him, Demas on his right side, and Gestas on his left. But Jesus said, May my Father forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they divided his garments, and upon his vesture they cast lots. The people in the meantime stood by, and the chief priests and elders of the Jews mocked him, saying, "He saved others, let him now save himself if he can. If he be the Son of God, let him now come down from the cross." The soldiers also mocked him, and taking vinegar and gall offered it to him to drink, and said to him, "If thou art king of the Jews, deliver thyself." Then Longinus, a certain soldier, taking a spear, pierced his side, and presently there came forth blood and water. And Pilate wrote the title upon the cross in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek letters. That is, they were saying, "This is the King of the Jews." But one of the two thieves who were crucified with Jesus, whose name was Gestas, said to Jesus, "If thou art the Christ, deliver thyself and us." But the thief who was crucified on his right side, whose name was Demas, answering rebuked him and said, "Dost thou not fear God, who art condemned to this punishment? We indeed receive rightly and justly the demerit of our actions, but this Jesus, what evil hath he done?" After this groaning, he said to Jesus, "Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom." Jesus answered, said to him, "Verily I say unto thee, that this day thou shalt be with me in paradise." Chapter 8. And it was about the 6th hour, and darkness was upon the face of the whole earth until the 9th hour, that is between 12 o'clock noon our time and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And while the sun was eclipsed, behold, the veil of the temple was rent from the top to the bottom, and the rocks also were rent, and the graves opened, and many bodies of saints which slept arose. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, "Heli, Heli, lama sabachthani," which being interpreted is, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" And after these things Jesus said, "Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit." And having said this, he gave up the ghost. But when the centurion saw that Jesus thus crying out gave up the ghost, he glorified God and saith, "Of a truth this was a just man." And all the people who stood by were exceedingly troubled at the sight, and reflecting upon what had passed, smote upon their breasts, and then returned to the city of Jerusalem. The centurion went to the governor, and related to him all that had passed. And when he had heard all these things, he was exceedingly sorrowful. And calling the Jews together, said to them, "Have ye seen the miracle of the sun's eclipse, and the other things which came to pass while Jesus was dying?" Which when the Jews heard, they answered to the governor, "The eclipse of the sun happened according to its usual custom." But all those who were the acquaintance of Christ stood at the distance, and as did the women who had followed Jesus from Galilee, observing all these things. And behold, a certain man of Arimathea named Joseph, who also was a disciple of Jesus, but not openly so, for fear of the Jews, came to the governor and entreated the governor that he would have given him leave to take away the body of Jesus from the cross. And the governor gave him leave. And NIcodemus came, bringing with him a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 100-pound weight. 100 pounds it says here, but in the Holy Bible, in the New Testament, in Greek, it says 100 kilos. 100-pound weight, and they took down Jesus from the cross with tears, and bound him with linen cloths with spices, according to the custom of burying among the Jews. And placing him in a new tomb which Jesus had built, and caused to be cut out of a rock, in which never a man had been put, and they rolled a great stone to the door of the sepulchre. Chapter 9. When the unjust Jews heard that Joseph had begged and buried the body of Jesus, they sought after Nicodemus and those 15 men who had testified before the governor that Jesus was not born through fornication, and other good persons who had shown any good action towards Jesus. But when they all concealed themselves through fear of the Jews, Nicodemus alone showed himself to them and said, "How can such persons as these enter into the synagogue?" The Jews answering him, "But how durst thou enter the synagogue who wast a confederate with Christ? Let thou lot be along with him in the other world." Nicodemus answered, "Amen. So may it be, that I may have my lot with him in his kingdom." In like manner Joseph of Arimathea, when he came to the Jews, said to them, Why are ye angry with me for desiring the body of Jesus of Pilate? Behold, I have put him in my tomb and wrapped him up in clean linen and put a stone at the door of the sepulchre. I have acted rightly towards him, but ye have acted unjustly against that just person in crucifying him, giving him vinegar to drink, crowning him with thorns, tearing his body with whips, and praying down the guilt of his blood upon you. The Jews, at the hearing of this, were disquieted and troubled, and they seized Joseph and commanded him to be put in custody before the Sabbath and kept there till the Sabbath was over. And they said to him, Make confession, for at this time it is not lawful to thee to do thee any harm, till the first day of the week come. But we know that thou wilt not be thought worthy of a burial, but we will give thy flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth. Joseph answered, That speech is like the speech of proud Goliath, who reproached the living God in speaking against David. But ye scribes and doctors, that God saith by the prophet, Vengeance is mine, and I will repay you, evil equal to that which ye have threatened to me. The God whom you have hanged upon the cross is able to deliver me out of your hands. All your wickedness will return upon you. For the governor, when he washed his hands, said, I am clear from the blood of this just person. But ye answered and cried out, His blood be upon us and our children, according as ye have said, may ye perish forever. The elders of the Jews, hearing these words, were exceedingly enraged, and seized Joseph. They put him into the chamber where there was no window. They fastened the door and put a seal upon the lock. And Annas and Caiaphas placed a guard upon it, and took counsel with the priests and Levites that they should all meet after the Sabbath, and they contrived to what death they should put Joseph. When they had done this, the rulers, Annas and Caiaphas, ordered Joseph to be brought forth. Here I would like to say that the Jews were wrong in saying that the eclipse was a regular thing that was to take place, because it was the full moon. The full moon means that the moon is opposite of the sun, which means that it cannot eclipse the sun.